Hello! I'm here today to talk about Harry Potter and the fans. I even decked out in my Ravenclaw blue to represent my house for this course. Except, actually, I can't do this. For the past 8 weeks, I've been participating in this course as a Ravenclaw, but that's just a lie. I'm sorry. I have to come clean. I know, for the past 8 weeks, I've been posting and commenting as a Ravenclaw, but that's not me. I am at heart a Slytherin, so I would like to apologize for any hurt I may have caused with this deception. I have come clean in time for my final project in order to truly present the best case in my truest self. I'm here today to talk about Harry Potter. More than that, though, the fandom of Harry Potter, the fans of Harry Potter, and the impact of the fan community. So to start off, I'm going to define some terms just because I will be using them throughout this video, and so I just want to make sure that everyone kind of knows what I'm talking about. The first one, of course, is fandom. The fandom is kind of the fan community, specifically online, of a work of media. This could be Harry Potter, this could be Avengers, this could be Star Trek. It can really be any form of media. One Direction has a fandom, and I'm not talking about the people who go to the concerts, I'm talking about the people who write One Direction fan fiction. Yes, that exists. And then you also have canon. Canon is what the original author wrote originally. So basically, for Harry Potter, canon. These 7 books, canon. But then you also have such things like fan fiction, also fanfic, also referred to as a work. This is a story, usually written, that someone wrote in response to something. It is, but it's what if Harry was actually sorted into Slytherin is a good example off the top of my head. You also have fan art, which is art made in response to either canon material, or just maybe it's in response to a fanfic, maybe it's just a scene someone had in their head, maybe it's just something someone wanted to do. I will say for Harry Potter, one thing that's very common is seeing little scenes together of scenes that were not in the movies but were in the book, and I always think those are fun. Then you also have a fan vid, which can be anything from a fan made film on YouTube or one you find on TikTok, both of which are fan vids. Under fan vids, you also kind of have plays, but that kind of is a little bit of an iffy territory when you get into, say, a Harry Potter musical, which I'll talk about here in a second, but it was a play produced by a theater company as a parody, and they posted it on YouTube, and it went viral, but they were a play that had to post on YouTube because it was easier than giving out DVDs. Then you also have crack. Crack is something that's kind of just taken as a joke. It's not really serious. It's just something fun and silly, so you have crack ships. A ship is saying you want someone in a relationship together. It stands for relationship. So a crack ship, for example, would be Drapple, Draco and Apple. Here's a fun little fan art. No one really ships them. It's just a fun little goofy thing to have, blow some steam off. So the ship, though, ships, though, usually people do take very seriously, especially if it's their OTP, or one true pairing. One true pairing is that one ship that you will love till the day you die. It's like your favorite one. It's the one you hold most dear. Fanon, then, is fan canon. Basically a collective agreement without even ever talking about it that something is true for the fans. So this would be the spell Tempest. If you have never heard of this spell, that is because you have never read a Harry Potter fanfiction. Because Tempest is a spell created that tells time that is used only ever in fanfiction. Then you have a headcanon, which is something that one individual person says is canon for them. Oftentimes, these are something that you see small, but it's throughout the culture, or throughout an author. So if an author always writes books, and in their book they always talk about Hermione, in their works they always talk about Hermione being black, then they have a headcanon that Hermione is black. But it's never really a big thing, and it's never expressly mentioned, then it's not a trope. A a trope is something that you have throughout any form of media, in TV shows, in every book, and everything. You have tropes. So tropes are sort of like the general plot line, but they're overly used general plot line almost, but not in a bad way. So, you have like coffee shop trope. You have like enemies to lovers is a trope. And then ironically, here's a little fun fact for you that's not about the Harry Potter fandom. Every other fandom, one trope that's really common in Percy Jackson and Avatar and the Avengers and almost any other fandom is Hogwarts AU. AU means alternate universe. So basically, it's a fanfic where you take the characters of Percy Jackson, but you put them at Hogwarts. So Harry Potter fandoms have literally impacted other fandoms just by existing. You have work, which is another word for fanfic, which for some reason a work usually is explicitly used for Archive of Our Own, or AO3. And then you have slash. Slash refers to a gay ship. So if it's a slash fic, it's a fic that focuses on a gay ship. And it's always usually gay. It's very rarely used for like lesbian. It's usually purely gay. And then a few other sites I will mention just before is one, Archive of Our Own, or AO3. Common site. It's one of the most common ones used at the moment. Then you have Wattpad. Wattpad's also pretty common, but Wattpad can have fan fiction or any other type of writing. It doesn't have to be based on another material. Whereas Archive of Our Own and fanfiction.net are purely fan fiction. Archive of Our Own, though, you can also post fan art, and you can post links to fan vids, and you can also do audio recording. So a lot of people will do like a not quite a podcast, but they'll almost do like an audiobook, but of a fanfic. And then fanfiction.net is one of like the OG fanfiction giant site. Started in the late 90s, and they are only fiction works. They're only fan fiction, and they're only written works. And we also have Tumblr. Tumblr is another social media site, anonymous, but you have huge fandom communities throughout it. But people will post fan art, but people will also post fan fiction on Tumblr. So sometimes they get cross-posted, sometimes it's only one place, so it's a little hard for me to exactly say for that one. Another fun thing about fandoms is how we kind of have our own culture, both within an individual fandom, but then also as a fan community in general. So one thing is that you don't repost someone's work without asking permission or without giving credit. So every single fan art that I'll post, I have spent a lot of time going through and messaging many different artists asking to use their art, because it's very disrespectful to use or repost something without people's permission, and definitely without credit. History of fanfiction. So some people actually claim Dante's Inferno as being the first fanfic, which I think is hilarious, mostly because it's this classic novel that people have said, it actually is basically a Bible reader insert fanfiction. But it does also go into at least the 1700s, where people were reading some work and then writing stories based off of it, which is the basis of fanfiction. So fanfiction didn't start with a bunch of nerdy kids huddling around their computer because they couldn't make friends. There's a history of a community even as late as the 1700s, even further if you look at Dante's Inferno as being fanfiction. What we consider modern fanfiction and modern fandom did start in the 1960s with Star Trek. The first kind of fan-made avenue was a magazine called Spockanalia. The issue with the magazine, while you had articles of people who were discussing different plot points, you had fan fiction, you had fan art, all of the stuff that you normally would use on the internet. The issues with the magazine, though, was that it was a magazine, and printing it was expensive. So it created a money barrier for people who weren't able to afford it. But then, in the 90s, you had the internet come along, and so you started to have these fan sites. But the thing with this was that every single fandom had their own website. So Star Trek had their own site. X-Files had their own site. Frasier had their own site. Harry Potter had their own site. So every single fandom had their own little area of the internet. So it wasn't, you didn't really see crossovers. You didn't really see people who were able to kind of dip their toes into different fandoms because it was much more separated. Then in the late 90s, you had fanfiction.net come along. And on there, you're able to have all of these fandoms come together as one. And so you're able to kind of experience and randomly, maybe, and jump around between fandoms easier and more often. Fun fact, the oldest fanfic on fanfiction.net is a X-Files fanfic written in 99, and the author has actually gone on to become a published romance author. So there you go. Which leads me to my next point of how fanfiction does have actual benefits. Of how a lot of authors get started and a lot of published works start as fanfiction. You do 50 Shades of Grey, which started as a Twilight fanfiction, but as we know, it went on to be a 3-movie and 3-book series. Or you have After, also a book and movie series, started as a One Direction fanfiction. Or Cassandra Clare, author of The Mortal Instruments, also wrote a Harry Potter fanfic, and a lot of it kind of tied together in the exact same way. And so they think that she kind of tweaked a few things to make it even more different, but it started as a fanfic. Which leads me to my next segment. Now specifically Harry Potter. So one thing we have, you have a lot of common tropes within Harry Potter that are something that you wouldn't know unless you're part of the fandom. Like I was talking to my mom the other day about something, I used the word Drarry. She's like, what in the world is Drarry? Drarry is the ship between Draco and Harry. So a lot of fan fictions, and even fan vids, fan art, all this stuff, they rewrite canon in some way. I kind of joke that you kind of have a few different genres within fan fiction, but then you have era fan fiction. So basically different eras within the universe that isn't really talked about. So Founder era is a really common one, Marauder era, and then Next Gen. Marauder era is really interesting because as a fandom, some people have collectively created some fanon, such as Marlene McKinnon. Marlene McKinnon is given 1-2 sentences in the Order of Phoenix. All we know about her, Marlene McKinnon, she died 2 weeks after this photo was taken. The Death Eaters got her entire family. All we know about her. She has over 8,000 works on Archive of her own. Collectively, people have just decided, yeah, Marlene McKinnon, she was best friends with Lily Evans and Alice Longbottom. Why? Because we said so. So they've created their own little trio within that. Or how a lot of Marauder. Here's one that is that's kind of become very popular recently for the Marauder era, is James and Regulus were secretly dating behind Sirius's back. I don't know where this came from. I just know that all of a sudden the ship got super popular after a few TikToks. I don't know why. I just know that all of a sudden they're all over my For You page. So you have era fics. And also a lot of times you have, within fanfictions, you have a lot of the times the main focus is on the ships. So, Marauder's fic might focus on how James and Jilly got together. Maybe it would focus on Wolfstar, Remus and Lupin, second most popular fic or ship on Archive of Our Own. So it focuses on different ships a lot of times, whether that's how they got together, whether it's tweaking canon so that way they can get together, because the top 10 list of fic of author of most common ships on Archive of Our Own, 3 or 4 of them are canon. The rest of them are all not canon. You have Drarry, Draco and Harry. Obviously, in canon, they would never get together. Or then Remus and Sirius, both which, Remus and Tonks came out truly nowhere. Don't know what happened there. That one felt very random on Rowling's part, not gonna lie. And then you also have like Draminoe, Draco and Hermione. A lot of people really like it. It's super popular. So a lot of times fanfics are looking at ways to make their ship happen, but it's not random. They're oftentimes really well done. There are some really amazing fics out there that do some excellent world building and make it completely natural in a way. So then you also, which brings me to my next point of the what ifs. What if fics are some of my favorite, and they're the most popular. They're probably the most general ones. So I mean, what if Harry was sorted into Slytherin? What if Draco was a Vela? What if Harry had a twin? What if the Time Turner and the Order of Phoenix broke and they got sent to the Founders? It was Harry's father. What if Voldemort was Harry's father? What if Remus and Sirius came along and got Harry off of the Dursley's porch and raised him instead? What if the Dursleys dumped Harry at an orphanage? What if fics look at canon in a completely new light, and usually there's some amazing world building that will happen in those what if fics, such as how house elves work. You know, why do wizards keep this partnership with them? What did the house elves get out of it? Why was this partnership even formed? How Gringotts works. What was the Goblin War? Why does Vince keep on mentioning it? And there has to be more to it. What's the deal with the most noble in ancient houses? You know, you talk about, the most noble in ancient houses is black. Yet, what does that mean? Is it like a ancient England, like King Arthur situation where there's lords and ladies? The one thing with fans, specifically who are into fandom, is that you will give them a crumb and they will make an entire feast for you. Like, you'll have a full parade, like a full-on feast worthy of Hogwarts out of one little crumb. Look at Marlene McKinnon. But then also, you know, sometimes there are like smaller what ifs, like what if the Dementor wasn't Harry's, Bogart? And those are just kind of fun, small little one-shots, meaning one chapter, that's it. It doesn't really do anything, but it's just kind of something small. So, fandom, though, does have a few impacts, both within the fandom, and then also it has an impact outside of itself. I already kind of talked about Tempest being a spell that is used solely. I'm sorry, I just dropped my wand. Tempest. It's a spell that's used only in fanfiction. That is an impact that only is on the fandom. Then you have ones like Hufflepuffs are good finders. This came out of a Harry Potter musical from StarKid Productions. I don't know why, but for some reason, fans took this quirky little line and just ran with it. I don't know if it's because J.K. Rowling really gives us no information about Hufflepuffs, and so fans are just kind of, thirsty for any information about Hufflepuffs, and so this was granted to us, and we took it and we ran with it. I don't know if it's just a fun line, but Hufflepuffs are particularly good finders. Don't ask me why, just know that this is fact in fandom. And then off of StarKid, this production, this was their first play ever. It was a Harry Potter musical. It's a Harry Potter parody. It's really funny. Go check it out on YouTube. It has over 18 million views. Since a Harry Potter musical, they had a Harry Potter sequel, and then they had a Harry Potter musical senior year. Fun fact about a Harry Potter musical senior year: they got the actress who played Luna to actually play Luna in their play because it becomes such a big phenomenon by that point. And then also with that, they have gone on to produce many more musicals, both parody and their own original content as well. They're one of the most known theater production companies around people my age. But then also, you know who played Harry Potter? Ooh. Yeah, he's now an Emmy Award-winning actor. This one production had a huge impact on both the people who made it, aka this guy again, but then also within the fandom, because we come across this piece of knowledge that Hufflepuffs are good finders. Then you also have impacts like Mortal Instruments, which I already talked about somehow got its origins as a Harry Potter fanfic, the Draco trilogies. It is still posted somewhere. But then also, fans oftentimes have a collective agreement. A few things that we have collectively agreed upon. Cursed Child is the worst thing ever. You know how I mentioned I'd get on, so you know how I said these 7 books were canon? J.K. Rowling basically said Cursed Child is canon. Cursed Child isn't on the shelf. Cursed Child is very far away because it's a very bad book and I do not consider it canon. So, Cursed Child completely undid so many of the character growth we've come to love in our characters. I'm not the only one who thinks this. There are articles titled Harry Potter and the Ruin, How Cursed Child Ruins the Fandom. How Cursed Child Ruined Canon. How Cursed Child, the worst thing to ever come out of Harry Potter. There are literal articles flaming this entire book / playwright / play. I don't know what you would call the book that was a script of a play, but the entire fandom hates it, basically. The entire fandom hates it, and it's a really interesting collective agreement about how, 1, J.K. Rowling is not given any more decisions on Harry Potter, and 2, the Harry Potter musical is more canon than Cursed Child. This explains it way better than I could, because this just makes more sense. Are you done reading? I don't know. I'm a fast reader, so I don't know how long you need to read this. Are you done reading? You're done reading. If you're not done reading, pause it. So, the Harry Potter musical, a play that was literally a parody that came out of the University of Michigan, has become more of an impact on the fans than a full-on book that was authored with J.K. Rowling. Which leads me to my next point about how the fans have moved past Rowling. There are many things that people have called out Rowling in the past, between the anti-trans comments and also representation in her books. Did you know there are 8 people of color in the entire series? That is 1 for every movie. Lee Jordan, Dean Thomas, Cho Chang, Pavarti Patil, Padma Patil, Kingsley Shacklebolt, Blaise Zabini, Angelina Johnson. Most of them have very little screen time in the movies. In the books, they do play more of a role, but they're still tiny characters. So a lot of fans have sought out to fix this because of wanting to see more diversity. Or another thing is that when you fall in love with the series, when you were raised with the series, growing up reading Harry Potter since I was 4 years old, maybe you're a kid of color and you just want to see one of your favorite characters. Maybe you love Harry, but Harry isn't of color. He's white. You don't understand it. So guess what? In your head, he's now Indian, or Hermione's now black. There's some really cool fan art out there with the Golden Trio being portrayed as not being their 3 token white people. See example right here. There's, same thing comes with queer representation, with how there is 1 canon queer character, and that's Albus Dumbledore. And you want to know where in these 7 canon books it's mentioned he's queer? Never. It was released 4 years after he died by J.K. Rowling in an interview. So a lot of queer fans basically have been like, there's no actual queer characters in the entirety of canon Harry Potter. So guess what? Harry's now bi. Fans have taken the series and they have made it their own. You have these, of those top 10 Archive of Our Own ships, about 4 or 5 of them were slash. Because there is no canon queer representation. There's not a single, even if you view her interviews and comments, even if you view Rowling's interviews and comments after canon ended as canon, there's still no queer ship. It's 1 character and he's not even in a relationship, so there's no representation there. So fans have taken something that is straight and white and made it something that is queer and colorful in a way that Rowling probably couldn't have never predicted. And that's why Rowling is not going to be the one who decides who the legacy Harry Potter has. That will be on us. That is on the fans. Harry Potter will have a legacy. It has been around for 25 years. And at this point, it's been around for a generation. You think it would have died out, but it hasn't. It is still growing. It is still producing. Fans are writing and producing new stuff every day. There are over 380,000 works on AO3 under Harry Potter. They're about I think over 800,000 on fanfiction.net. Unknown, huge amount on Tumblr, Wattpad, Sugar Quill, all of these other sites. It would take you maybe 2 weeks to read the entire series. There are a little over 1 million words in that series. There are 23 works on Archive of Our Own that have over 1 million words. It would take you a lifetime to read every single fanfic. Even if everyone stopped tomorrow writing new fanfic, it would take years. And you would probably have to spend every waking moment reading, and you probably still wouldn't finish. The fandom has continued on past Rowling. We have collectively divorced her. She's gone. Harry Potter is no longer what's just in these 7 books. It's now what you find on Archive of Our Own. It's what you find on Tumblr. It's what you find on your TikTok For You page even. Or YouTube. Like, Harry Potter is no longer just J.K. Rowling's. Harry Potter is now ours. So, keep creating. Have fun. Bye. Avada Kedavra. Desperato. Despacito. For some reason, Archive of Our Own's logo is AO3. Oh, I just got that. Archive A. I just got that. Okay. Anyway. Avada Kedavra. Wait, what's this sign? Avada Kedavra. You like my mug? Cheers. Tina, come here. Tina, come here. This is my Hufflepuppy. Say hi to the camera, Tina. Oh, woo. Or not. She's very cute, and she has a Hufflepuff collar. You can't see. Push and flip. Abracadabra. Avada Kedavra.